Okay. So we have Noella, Karemera, and then we have Professor Gerald, Shija, and Professor Amos. Is it Mwakgonja? Mwakgonja. So there's an I missing, I think. So it's Mwakgonja. Professor Casimiro, over to you. All right.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I am from Eduardo Mondlane University in Maputo, Mozambique, and also from the Executive Committee of CODESRIA. Nice to meet you all again, and thank you for coming to this panel. It is somehow a going on of the previous discussion. It was very interesting to hear to Professor Joe talking about both declarations, about the situations in our universities, and it was like I was seeing Eduardo Mondlane University, you know, with so many problems, with also with killings somehow happening these days. And I'm not going to talk about our elections, our local elections, because it is another big problem. But today, this panel will talk about autonomy. The autonomy of higher learning institutions. We can have 15, is it possible, 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes to each of you? Is it possible? And then we will open for discussion, okay? So please, Dr. Noella, do you want to speak from here or there? Feel comfortable.
Okay, hello. Okay, thank you, Prof. Today we will have to talk about the autonomy in higher learning institutions, but maybe because also we have been talking about the academic freedom. I think it's following what we heard with the previous speakers. Maybe I can say a little bit about also the academic freedom. And in the academic freedom, which can, I think people they say we can consider it like the academic, the freedom for our institution to pursue in how they do their research and teaching, and without really having any interference with the government, from the government or institution or other actors. So this freedom will help our institution to do the advancement of knowledge and the pursuit of the truth. However, I think we maybe from the discussion or the speeches we have in this morning, we saw that we still have many problems or barriers against our that are treating the academic freedom. Among them, we can say, I think, like the government censorship or interference, where we will see that academia and really they don't have that freedom to say what they need, because maybe it can be against the goals or the regime or the regime and its the politic of those regimes. So we have also, we can say that it's an institutional pressure, and even from our universities, academicians may feel some pressure to put or to be, to speak the truth they have from their fundings, because maybe they will feel that it's not in the line with what the universities are maybe expecting from them. Also, we have what we can call the self-censorship. Also, the academicians themselves, they have a fear of themselves or their families, so they really they can't put the findings, they can't publish the findings they got from the research. They think that they have to give a certain view from what they got from the research to praise some people. So academic, the academic freedom, we can say that is good, but maybe it shouldn't be absolute. We think that, I think that certain limits should be there, because even if we are in high learning institutions, those learning institutions also can't do whatever they want. For example, we can't allow them to push people to commit some violence or to have hate speeches. Yeah, so that's why I think that it can be good to have some regulatory authorities, but it shouldn't be here also to silence people. Someone said it yesterday. Now, coming to the autonomy of the higher learning institution, we can, I think, understand by them that the learning institution, they should be self-governing, mostly having that freedom. I talk a little bit about the freedom for introducing that autonomy. So if they're self-governing, they will have the autonomy in teaching, in doing research. It means that they can have the ability, for example, to design their curriculum, hiring staff, doing research, using their own methodology. However, now I say, when we say that autonomy, it's really something that is very important for our higher learning institutions, because it will allow them to pursue the excellence in teaching, which will help to have a good will help people to enhance their knowledge without having that interference from the external forces or external actors. And if our learning institution really have enough autonomy, it will help them also to respond to the needs of their students and the communities, and they will also embrace the diversity, which help also them to have new ideas. And when we talk about new ideas, it means that they can really do also the innovation without fearing what they can have from that innovation. And also, with the autonomy, I think that is something that is also good. Our higher learning institution will be more accountable to the stakeholders, not necessarily to the government or the other authorities. Okay, but however, when we say the autonomy, I think we can have a different type of autonomy for our higher learning institutions, let me talk about the academic autonomy. They can have the academic autonomy. I said it well. Somewhere here now, our institution will have the freedom, the ability to design the curriculum, to have the teaching methodology, how to conduct the research without always waiting for the government maybe to tell them what they should do. And it's good also if our institution have the financial autonomy, and they will not be in fear to have their funds that can be cut, so they know that they're using their funds, they can conduct this research and this one. So this also will help our institutions. And if they have also staffing autonomy, it's good because they know that they can hire people, they can put the salary as depends on the means they do have. So the government is not there telling them, you hire this one, you take this one. I think in this morning we saw that it can be also a problem. And also, if they have an administrative autonomy, it's something good because we know that they will be able to take their own decisions, not always waiting what the government can dictate them to do. So I think that the level of autonomy is not the same in all countries, because we saw that when we go maybe to some dictatorial countries, our higher learning institutions, even if it's what we want, I think they will not have this autonomy as it should be. Now, some people, when maybe, I think also when we are talking about the freedom, the autonomy in higher learning, maybe also people may think, is it really good to have the total autonomy, total freedom in our higher learning institution? This can't lead maybe to the lowering the quality in teaching, because maybe there is no system or an organ to control what the people they do. Or also we ask ourselves, maybe it can't be a source to have maybe the corruption, because there is no one, for example, to say you should admit people following those rules or those regulations, even hiring staff, people who are qualified. So we can ask ourselves also that questions, or even our institution still will be efficient enough if there is no system to regulate what they do. But still, despite those arguments or questions, I think that freedom and autonomy is something that is good for our higher learning institution. Maybe we should only have a kind of a balance between what our institution higher learning institution they do, and a regulatory system that is not there to silence people, but maybe to help them to do things well. And like that, maybe we will not compromise the quality and the accountability of a higher learning institution towards the stakeholders. Thank you. It's what I had to say about the freedom and the autonomy. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, please. Professor Gerald.
Thank you for the nice presentation. And actually, we are moving in a very good direction, although when you ask Professor Shija, would tell you that we still have a long way to go. And I really buy his ideas that we are lacking the fighting spirit nowadays, and actually try to see if we can take a step ahead of that and increase the fighting spirit and try to fight for our rights in the academics, having autonomy and academic freedom. My name is Gerald Shija, coming from the University of Dodoma. I'm the chairman of the University of Dodoma Academic Staff Association, an academician, a chemist, a graduate of university. I will declare that this is my first time being here as alumni. Once I left in 2009, till now is when I come back as for this curriculum. So I think this event, preparation, all other things, invitation. My English is not that good. I grew up in rural places, you know, even in Swahili. I started speaking Swahili when I was in Form 1, frequently Swahili. So in our region, even mathematics was somehow taught in Sukuma. So the teacher will somehow chip in Sukuma. So my language is a mix of Sukuma, Swahili, somehow English. So I will try to make my point clear. But if we hear some vocabularies you don't understand, you just know they are coming from my mother tongue. So don't worry about it. So the struggle has been along, left Africa to try to look for green pastures in other places like Europe and America. But for those who remained, organized themselves and they came with the declaration, we had the history from Prof. Joe. And when you look at that history and try to compare the environment, there are some changes in terms of the environment as far as autonomy of the university and the freedom in terms of expression, or if you particularize it in terms of academic freedom, you see there is a change. Has not changed much. During that time, people were advocating the issue of university autonomy or higher learning institution autonomies were labeled as colonial agents. You are being called a colonial agent. This university are asking for autonomies to make sure that they retain those people who are actually belonging to the colonial class. So there was a polarized discussion where people or academicians tried to themselves into two groups. You are either supporting the colonial struggle, fighting to remove colonialism, or when you mention something like institutional autonomies, you are being labeled that you are in that class of colonial class. When you bring that picture into the current situation, you find that we are Africans and we have our own political parties, but there are many. There is a C2 in Tanzania from Mr. Zito Kabwe and the other political parties. Nowadays, when you speak about something critical to the government, or you advocate something like academic freedom, you are labeled that to belong to the opposition of the government. So from colonial to opposition, the polarization is still the same. And academicians now are scared of fighting for freedom, because actually advocating something critical to the government is like fighting to the government. It's not helping the government. You have to speak in tongues, in words, on anything you want to speak about, but make sure that you support the government, even if the government is wrong. And the statement comes like, okay, it is very dangerous to be right when your master or your boss is wrong. So people are head off. Professor Chief yesterday was talking about the dangers of environment during those ages. But when you look at Mwalimu Nyerere, he was a teacher. He do have a public support. If today the government comes and attack our autonomy, can the public organize themselves and come to support us? They see us as an allied class, as somebody who are not part of us. We are milking the government, we have huge salaries, we are living luxurious life, and always we are being painted that image as if we are not contributing anything to the government or to the country or to the society. But where are we getting engineers? Engineers are coming from universities. Although we have many Chinese companies constructing our roads and other infrastructures, then we have our own, but at least we have coming from the universities. So the autonomy is very, very important. Once it's taken away, we have to feel the danger. But maybe we are not feeling the danger because we don't belong to academics. Are we really in academics? Or we are just there as a bus stop or an airport or something waiting for a transition? Maybe we were waiting for green pasture. I heard one of the professors said, I was in Majaralani. I'm now in the green pasture. So maybe green pasture is not our academics. Maybe our teaching and our research and the consultants are not enough. We are there waiting for political appointments to be ministers, chief secretaries, and whatever. So if we are in that academic arena, for that case, waiting for appointments, don't criticize your masters. Your master is the one who will appoint you. And once you are appointed, you have to dance the dance of the master. Everybody who is appointed fulfilling the wish of the appointing authority. So we have many of them. Once you have a PhD, one of my professors told me, now you have a PhD, and so you have to speak very well, you know, about the government. You have to start behaving, because now you can be appointed to be somebody else. So if you continue speaking in this tongue, people will label you and they will not enjoy your PhD. As if being in academics is not enjoying my PhD. Having a PhD is like a waiting. And we are many. We have left the struggle and the fight for autonomy of the universities to our leaders. We go to academic staff associations and other platforms and elect our leaders as kondoo wa kafara, and they leave them there, waiting for them to fight for us. But we forget that once you expose your fighters, you are putting them in danger. But also these people are coming from different background, you know, poverty and all other things. So we need to join our forces. You ask yourself, you are speaking something, criticizing the government, and you ask yourself how it will be the next month if my salary slip doesn't come from the government. That is the question you'll be asking yourself. My parent, my relative, and whatever. So, but I was thinking one day, how could it be if we join our forces, all over the country. For example, Tanzania, we speak one thing, one language. We don't teach, we don't do anything, and we just wait and see what will happen. And I was like, one day in America, that they declared in one of the states that we are not going to have a law today. Stealing is right today. So if you want to steal, you can just go to the shop and grab what you want. It was a chaos. Maybe if we join our forces and try to force to have autonomy, which is a true autonomy, because I don't see the true autonomy now. If you can see in your institutions, maybe if you have that. But in Tanzania, I have been a leader of these associations, trade unions. I see we are still far away from having the autonomy. And the reason has been we are getting funding from the government. You prepare your curriculum, self-governance. But when you look at self-governance, you wonder, where is self-governance? The vice-chancellor is appointed by the state. The chancellor is appointed by the state. The deputies, you can mention, you can have 4 or 5, all appointed by the state. And when they come to the universities, they appoint principals of the colleges, deans of the schools, heads of departments. So it's like a trickle-down effect. You go to the Senate, you find all people in the Senate room are government appointees, direct or indirect. Where is self-governance? There's no self-governance there. There's no autonomy. Let us think about even the structures of our university and how we obtain people to lead. Tell me one critical person in this country or anywhere in Africa who has been the vice-chancellor. Tell me one. Can we take Zito Kabwe and put him the vice-chancellor today? If we have that courage, who have tried that? There are some leaders who have some political tolerance, but not enough to put critical professors to those positions. I witnessed one professor was appointed as a principal of the college. He was surviving, not leading, surviving. You know, you can be a leader or being surviving. When the day is gone, you say, oh, at least today I have finished as a principal. Maybe tomorrow I should think about my old car because I might be ending up of taking it to work. So that is the challenge we have. It is all over the place. You have the results, you have examinations prepared there by all our boards, examination board and whatever departmental meeting. The results are not okay. The government will come in and tell you, we are investigating you. There is a mass failure here. So students should not fail. But if they are not studying seriously, so what should we do as academicians? Are we supposed just to pass them? But we will pass them, I'm telling you. There will be coming orders. I have seen it one day. They had a regulation in the Senate that below 16, you cannot go for the university examination. That was a regulation, 16 out of 40. That is 40% of a test. Almost 56% of the students failed. The law was revoked. The law was revoked. And when I asked, I was answered in Swahili, ukiona gari limekosa njia barabarani, unaliingiza mtaroni. When you see you can't go through the tamarals, go through the bridge. So that was what I was told. The law was revoked at the mid of the game. It is not a penalty. The law has changed. Where is changed? No, just busara. But busara comes when we don't have regulations, when we don't have laws. It is something to come to substitute something, not the first thing to be done. We have the law. It speaks that below 16 we are not supposed to go to the examinations. But it was revoked. And the scenario of similar kinds are so many. We have so many leaders who have tried to advocate autonomy in our universities. They ended up being taken somewhere where they don't even belong. You are being told you go to Kantaramba lab. You go there, you find there's no lab, and you are a chemist. You stay there. You sit there, detained tortured, and nobody even speaks about you. It is scaring leaders, even people to come forward and speak. Professor Shija, what should we do? What is a way forward? Are we going to be blaming each other every year when we meet? Maybe we should do something. If it was electricity, I could say we need to do induction. Induction like in transformer, primary and the secondary coil. You have a small current in the primary coil, you have a larger current we have one Shija. How can we have the secondary currents with more Shivjis and the Chachages and the like? To give the example in Tanzania, we are far away. So my way forward may be, I can see my chair is trying to check the okay, fine. I will use that one to come with some way forward. Let us form maybe an association. For example, this event, it is the first time I'm hearing it. But Dodoma, we don't know even about it. I am here with my ASAPUCT chairman, Dr. Ntwenya. We'll go there and try to explain to them. But at least the second-hand information is not much stronger compared to the first-hand information. Maybe we start connecting now this idea. Do it in Tanzania, finishing it, do it in Dodoma, come with declaration of Africa from different universities, coming together as one. Because being eaten is being eaten. Regardless when is being eaten. There is a story of two cows, a black, a brown, and a white cow. The lion wanted to eat both of them, but was trying to eat. They were combining and fighting, so he actually was not able. So he discovered a way. He found the white cow and told her, you know what, you are white. This one is black. You know, one day you will have babies, and this black will have babies. So this black will combine with your white color. They will destroy your generation. The color, we won't have good colors, you know. So we remove this one so that you remain all white and at least brown, which is much better. So that white cow accepted the idea and agreed. So the black cow was eaten. So the hunger continues. Tomorrow it came with the idea of the brown with the same convincing power. Convinced, and the white actually accepted that the white color was much better than the brown and they should stay alone. He told the white cow that I come now to eat you. With no help from the black, and there was no help from the white, the brown, so he was eaten. But he spoke before being eaten, that you are eating me today, but I was eaten the day I allowed the black cow to be eaten. That was a sad story, a regret. So are we waiting until we regret? I think no. It is important to try to see how we can join our forces from Dar es Salaam to Dodoma, to Abidjan, to KwaZulu-Natal, to Makerere, to Nairobi, or Rwanda and other universities, and come together and have the declaration of togetherness, and try to do this colloquium all over the African continent, because we have a huge problem. And the answer has been funding. Even our budgets are not free. Look at how we prepare and what we get. But the school fees, we are not even arranging for the school fees. They are telling us, you must be dependent now. But they are arranging for our school fees. We have a commodity of its nature where the price of a commodity is not planned by the seller of the commodity. It is planned by somebody who is giving money for those who are going to buy. That is very challenging. But also, we have to think about having funding, research, which will generate much, actually, funds to run our universities. That is another also problem. Dependence chops freedom. When you are too much dependent to somebody, Sankara said once, the hands feeds you, controls you. So we are being controlled maybe because of funding. But again, there is so much debate on that. even if we talk about funding, because America spends a lot of money on its academic systems, but the interference is not for us. But the last point I will make is for us also, we have a problem. We are too much lenient to politicians. A vice chancellor is thinking about giving PhDs to leaders. Once a president, tomorrow a PhD holder. What is our problem? Huh? What has he done? No. So people are thinking maybe we should start about getting a political position, then the PhD will follow you. There's no now even there's no thing you can say about a PhD. In the past ages of Professor Shija, people were very proud of being doctors. But nowadays, there are so many doctors and professors, and some of them, they don't know even the textbooks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I have a short PowerPoint presentation, and then I'll speak from my notes. I'm not sure if there. Yes, thank you very much. Institutional autonomy at university level. The first slide, please. The first slide. So I'm Professor Amos Mwakgonja. I'm the president of the Muhimbili or MUHAS Academic Staff Assembly. But also professionally, I'm the head of Department of Pathology. I'm a pathologist by profession. University autonomy it has let's go back to the first. Yes, has a complex history, and it reflects. I cannot see from here political and educational developments, and I'll be speaking in the context of Tanzania. Since I'm from Tanzania, and then we shall reflect generally. So we can look at it very quickly from 1961, independence year. Next slide. Next, please, next. Yeah, so university autonomy refers to the ability of higher learning institutions to make independent decisions regarding their governance. My colleagues have talked about academic programs, the curriculums, financial matters. How much can we talk about independence in academic programs when we have regulators who regulate how our curriculum should be without excessive government interference? And the word excessive there is also a keyword, because one way or the other you will have some kind of governance interference in form of maybe regulation, oversight, but excessive governance, government interference is what we are more concerned. Next slide. And prior to gaining independence, we had limited higher learning institutions in Tanzania. There were few, and they were heavily influenced by the colonial powers. Influenced and controlled by the colonial powers. Next. So after independence, our first president and the father of the nation established new universities and also expanded access to higher education. But higher learning education was primarily under government control. And then with the Arusha Declaration, we had the Ujamaa philosophy, which emphasized collectivism and state control of resources, including universities. So this Ujamaa philosophy and the Azimio la Arusha impacted university governance, and the government played a dominant role in decision-making and funding of universities. I remember in the 90s, during the Kunjis, during the Kunjis, if people know, the strikes. And so the government, what it would do sometimes, just withdraw the sponsorship, because it was not allowed to have private sponsorship. All Tanzanian students were sponsored by the state. So once the state withdraws the sponsorship, the university is closed. So sometimes they were not fired, they were just, you withdraw sponsorship. And then you cannot go to court to force a sponsor to sponsor you. And then in the 80s, we had the structural adjustment programs, which recommended reducing public spending on education. That would include universities, and allowed universities to generate their own incomes. And so you can see a flick of autonomy starting to come about. Next. And then in the 90s, the liberalization, there was a shift also in Tanzania's higher education policy, influenced by the global trend on liberalization, to grant university more autonomy and allowing them to set their own programs and fees and manage their finances. But the keyword here is allowed, you know. So at the end of the day, you have a big brother somewhere who oversees everything, and he decides how much freedom you should have. Next. And then in the 2000s, the Tanzania Commission for Universities was established to regulate and oversee higher education. And in actual fact, it was not only regulating and overseeing, it was actually admitting students and even transferring. It was running, actually, higher learning education. And I remember one of the legacies of the former President Magufuli said, but TCU is both the player and the regulator. It cannot be both. And then he devolved some of the powers of TCU, took them back to universities. But you see, there was a time TCU was just too powerful, and then you could not talk so much about university autonomy. But of course, the aims are very good. They are noble aims to ensure quality control and standards, which is also a big problem when we have fake professionals and etc. It's a big problem. I work in a hospital environment, and sometimes we get fake doctors, and apart from fake medications. So of course, the endeavor to control quality and standards is a noble endeavor. And then, of course, TCU also established some sort of centralization again. Now, in recent years, there is an issue of balancing between the autonomy of universities on one side and the oversight and the regulation on another side. And so, and how you control the universities and higher learning institutions, you can control them through policies and guidelines, establish admission criteria, curriculum development, quality assurance, promotion criteria, and all these things. They are part of what is happening now, and we are walking a tightrope. Next. So, in conclusion, from this, universal autonomy in Tanzania is a dynamic issue. It is an issue which is continuing to evolve. We are not yet there. It is in response to political, economic, and educational changes. And there is always the balance between oversight and the autonomy. And it's an ongoing debate, and the reform is ongoing. And the next slide, we can see a cartoon which is depicting this. Next slide. Yeah. So you can see someone else with a balance, walking a tightrope. Okay? This is a balance between oversight and institutional autonomy. And this is what happens when we fail to balance. You fall down and you can see the dangers. But also, this cartoon shows that the process is evolving. You can see this is still drawing the roadmap. And so it's a continuous process. Now, from the PowerPoint, let me make a few remarks from my notes. Thank you very much. I also have notes on academic freedom, but I will. So, when we talk of autonomy and academic freedom generally, we are talking about freedom from what? So most of the time, and most of the time, we talk of freedom from the state. But I want to suggest also we need also to talk about freedom from the community, freedom from culture, freedom from beliefs, freedom from family, freedom from management, in this case, university management, freedom from industry, freedom from ourselves, my colleague from Rwanda has said, freedom from politics, including political correctness as well. I'll just highlight some more. So I will not talk about freedom from the state. Most of people have been talking. But freedom from culture. As academicians, how, for example, and the freedom from beliefs, I can combine maybe these two, for example. Me, I'm as a medical doctor, I'm a biologist. And one of the things we teach is the theory of evolution. That we are a result of evolution, of course, from molecules to unicellular organisms, then multicellular organisms. And of course, if you pursue that line, there is racism in it. Then you evolve monkeys, and then the black man, and then, you know, and the most formed form of Homo sapien is probably the white man, I mean. But then, me, I have my own religion. For example, as a Christian, I believe that the universe was created. So when I go to teach in the class, do I teach about creation or do I teach about evolution? You see, that's what I'm talking about when we talk about freedom from culture and beliefs. There are cultural beliefs as well and religious beliefs. Okay, as a medical doctor, we teach ladies and families about family planning. But some religions, they don't support, or actually they oppose family planning. Or when we had the HIV pandemic, talk about condoms. You see? When religions are talking about abstinence, and we doctors, we have to talk about the use of condoms. So we should expand academic and university autonomy to go beyond freedom from the state. How do we balance these things and give people evidence-based and factual information? Freedom from industry. You know, when your research is funded by a big pharmaceutical company, and then you have to produce a paper which says that drug is the best drug, automatically. And of course, the company will fund your travels to the conferences, international conferences. You will go to Toronto and present, stay at a 5-star hotel and present. I remember one time I stayed at a Marriott Hotel at Bethesda for 5 weeks and eating buffets day and night, and they gained a lot of... How much free are you going to be if you have been funded by, for example, Big Pharma? You remember during the COVID pandemic, we did not have freedom to talk about the truth. I'm a pathologist and I'm an expert in diseases, all kinds of diseases, including disease of immunity. You don't make a vaccine in 2 or 3 months, you know. And but do we have freedom to challenge the COVID vaccine? And anybody who challenges the COVID vaccine is labeled as wakati ule mlikuwa unasema mpinga ujamaa kina mzee Shivji. Mtu yote aliyekuwa anakuwa na mawazo tofauti alikuwa anaitwa adui wa nini? Wa ujamaa zamani au adui wa maendeleo. Baba yetu Prof Shija knows about this. So, but we have labels nowadays for people who oppose the vaccination and other measures. But obviously, the manner in which the vaccine was introduced in the world, not in the country, I'm talking about in the world, calls for a lot of questions. It takes 15 to 20 years to develop a vaccine, to do a clinical trial. So those are some of the things. But then how can universities be autonomous if they are not autonomous in recruitment? They are not autonomous in remuneration. So there are several others I'm listing. They are not autonomous in recruitment. They are not autonomous in remuneration. They are not autonomous in retirement packages. They are not autonomous in recognition. For example, for staff to be independent and not depend probably on the state and the big companies and industries. We don't have, in Tanzania, we don't have much of academic awards where people with merit, they are given awards which they go together with money or finances, which will give them independence, medals, positions, some scholarship. I'm not talking about students, for staff, academic staff. Because of some achievement or innovation, you are given, maybe go and Beijing there and stay for 1 year, and we are going to give you a package, you know. So recognition. But also, we can only also talk about autonomy if we are giving or producing evidence-based, fact-based information and informed decisions and opinions. Another thing I want to insinuate is about most academic institutions in Africa. I will be a little bit critical in this sense to us as academic members of the academic establishment in Africa. We are living in isolation from the rest of the community. I would like to liken this to the book Alice in Wonderland. A lot of academicians and universities are living in Wonderland. We are not part and relevant to the community around us. I remember one of a very good example, excellent example. I don't know if they still have the Faculty of Laws, the University of Dar es Salaam. They used to have a clinic to help people who do not have money to pay for whatever. That's what I'm talking about. You know, can you pay Issa Shivji if you want him to be your advocate at a court of law? You cannot pay. This is a prominent senior guy. I don't know how many dollars you can pay Professor Issa Shivji. But through those clinics, you could get Issa Shivji free of charge. You know? Now, when you are relevant to the community around you, you will get a voice. Yeah, thank you very much. I'm finishing. By way of conclusion, academic autonomy should not be a destiny in itself, should not be an end in itself for academic autonomy, but it should be a means to an end. In my opinion, the end should be relevance to the community, to the society. We must be meaningful to the people, must make a difference to the people around us. Somebody told us, when someone dies, we put a tombstone, and we put the year of birth and the year of death. In between, there is a dash. That dash explains everything that happened in the life of that person. It's a summary of everything, you know. The dash between the year of birth and the year of death. So we should strive to make that dash very meaningful to the people around us, so that they can remember us. Academic ideas should end in innovations and interventions which are community-based, not coming from the moon or from Mars and Jupiter. But we should not forget that the state is also part of the community. We should not completely strive to be independent from the state, but be relevant to the state as well, and so that the state find a meaning with the state. Thank you very much. Let me end there. One of the things which can help us to, of course, to be independent, control of the fees, research money, consultants, but also as academicians, we should be producing products. Like the products they produce in laws, clinics. Products does not mean physical things. Could be anything. But also we should fight for 31% GDP for research. If we just get that 1%, we can run universities very autonomous. Thank you, Lady Chairman.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much to the three speakers. Very interesting what you all brought to the discussion. Don't ask me to summarize. I'm not going to summarize. Otherwise, you will not have time to participate in the discussion. I would colonial time. In those days, we were fighting for autonomy. The academic association was fighting for autonomy. And the main leaders of the academic association were put out of the university. The academic association was closed, and these guys went to accomplish the military service. So I was thinking about what Joe said. We need to organize, we need to sacrifice at the same time when we are fighting for this. But please, the floor is open for discussion. We have until 2 o'clock. So please. Okay, please, go ahead. Where is the micro? The micro is there.
Where's the hand?
Thank you very much. My name is Julius. I joined the academic teaching in the year 2008 in a private university, and in 2009 in a public university. And I've been a leader in various posts since 2002 until today. So I've been a senator, a councillor to more than one university. Actually 3 universities as a councillor. Talking of autonomy of the university, our universities lost their autonomy long back. I'm happy to see and to learn the perpetrators of academic freedom melting have realized, and I have to overemphasize about this, they have realized that what they have been perpetrating is not healthy, and have started taking up actions. The first defenders of academic freedom should be our colleagues. In universities, we talk about collegial type of leadership. We just sit down and decide that Mr. X and X, Madam so-and-so, has acquired enough leadership skills to lead us, whether through appointments or anyhow. It's unfortunate, and this is according to my experience. These people, in most cases, have been the perpetrators of academic freedom melting. The universities are not free to do anything. They cannot make decisions about appointment. They make appointments, but someone else seated somewhere decides who should be the head of department. So life is difficult. Councils make recommendations on who should be the dean, who should be the principal. Sometimes it takes almost 2 to 3 years for those who are supposed to make the final decisions to say this person is okay or not. And when you inquire the response from the government or from those who are aware of the government business, will always tell you, if you don't hear, that means this very person has not been accepted. So you have to restart the process. So we have so many people on acting positions, and very clever big guys will always appoint people to take leadership positions. Because if you are just acting, you cannot make any critical decision. You will always be submissive. Recently, all the vice chancellors were invited, or they initiated through the Council of Vice Chancellors to meet with the government, to meet with the president, to meet with the Treasurer General, to discuss, to request about the need for academic freedom, about the need for university autonomy. So it's a gesture of good direction. So we don't have to relax because we are not sure what did they discuss. We need to continue following this conversation. For if we don't do it, I was whispering to Professor Joe that our main challenge today in academics, as far as organizations is concerned, there's a lot of apathy. That's our problem today. People are not interested. You call them to meetings, they are not interested because they have the feeling that whatever recommendations you make, they won't be honored. So I leave the mic to other speakers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Maybe I'll congratulate those who have spoken about this issue of autonomy. And of course, I was jotting some points, and one said those who are in leadership, especially in the association, are labeled as the opposition, or they are like opposition party. Oh, of course. What I can say, I have been also a reader in this association for several times for different positions. And I remember one instance when I was making a point to one of my boss who is in the management. He said in Swahili that siogopi wanaharakati na sikuogopi, which means I'm not scared, or I'm not afraid of activists, and I'm not afraid of you. So I was thinking maybe he's afraid of me, because saying I don't afraid of you means he's afraid of me in the other way. So my point that we have the enemy within us. The enemy is within us. So we are fighting the enemy who is within us. Our enemy are our people. And my question, do we have that autonomy? If we don't, why we don't have it? I have a saying that there is a big secret in poverty. Because of poverty, we cannot make a decision or sound decisions to be autonomous, because the poverty is telling us if I am doing this and the impact of this will lead to my salary being maybe stopped, then I will not get water. So we sometimes allow things to happen to us. And of course, the example of that, the regulation was revoked for 16 CA marks, revoked without anything. You can imagine, how can you fail those people who are your customers and they are financing your activities at the university? Poverty is that way. So the government also is, of course, giving they can introduce something that you think is very minor, but provided it is introduced, it will start slowly. For example, professor who was presented the last year, if I cannot mistake your name, Amos. Is it Amos? Mwakgonja. What is on your badge? Your badge. You know, I've seen. What are the logos? Yes. It has recently introduced, and we are taking it simply we are part of the government. We are part of the government. But is that the strategy that we are reduced to some departments of the government? Some are happy that we are part of the government. We are the government. So it is slowly introduced, and then we will be taken away, and our autonomy will get lost because we allow things to happen slowly. But if we say, no, we are autonomous as university should stand as university, and the other department of the government should take those logos, and us as university we have to do our responsibilities as universities, but not be imposed any regulation following us. So that is what I can say. But my main point that our poverty is taking our autonomy. Thank you.
Thank you for all the panelists this afternoon, and for the interesting deliberations going on. I want to reflect upon the institutions of higher learning as centers for pursuit of knowledge and the truth. But then also consider that the path of truth is less taken. And this concerns me because I don't want us to be vulnerable. And I will start from the basics of what we can change and what we cannot change. At the basics, like as a PhD student, this has not happened to me, but I'm talking from the perspective of other students, my colleagues. The academic freedom is not seen in how we interact with our mentors, for instance. You'll have a supervisor and he will tell you, you can't use this theory, you can't read this book, you can't do this, this is not new, this is, you cannot reinvent the wheel. And you find like they don't allow creativity. And this is a university supposed to lead you to pursue knowledge and truth. That's one point. But the second point is about being vulnerable to maybe decision makers, people that fund us, and we can go on and on. One time I was I've been in some conferences, and then one time there were colleagues that presented their findings from a project, but they had not discussed the findings with the project lead. So when the meeting was over, the project lead called them and said, how could you tell the people that this is what is happening? Why didn't you sugarcoat it? Then they said, when you're writing the final report, make sure those issues you raised don't appear in the report to the funders. And the funders were Danida. As our brother said here, we are enemies of our own autonomy. The funder had not even seen the findings. But the people managing the project were already micromanaging the team that this is what you should present. So if we have to be relevant to society, if we have to earn respect from the community, and then we cannot stand for the truth, how are we going now to advocate for more freedom, for higher rights, for respect from the whole, not only from colleagues, but even from the state to believe in us? So for me, I think we are, like he said it all, we are enemies of our own freedom sometimes. Because sometimes you may think that the funder is going to feel offended by the findings. But you can actually bargain, you can bring that partner on board and bring the partner to bargain and understand this is what we are taking and this is not what we are going to take. I've worked with somebody before in Zanzibar, and I'm proud of people of Zanzibar. They have their values and they stick by their values. The person that was like the project lead would tell us that we are going to get funding from this funder, but we are not going to get from this funder. Even if the money was a lot, he would say, I don't want their money because of this and that. So if we cannot find, stand on our own feet and say, this is what we can go for, this is what we can gain for, then we cannot claim our own academic freedom. And as we said in the morning, it's a journey. We have to fight and win our academic freedom. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I wanted to speak something about funding as one of the key challenges as we speak about university autonomy or academic freedom. And this is not only for staff, but also for students. I don't know what the reality in other countries. For example, in Tanzania, there is the Students' Loan Board. It does not give students, for example, to question anything once they are here at the university. Unlike in the previous time, when this was not the case. For example, during our time, you know, students could just demonstrate, they could do this and that, question some of the issues, but now it's very, very difficult. I want to talk about this. There is a tendency by some university lecturers eyeing for the posts, downtown posts in the government. And this is a trend. I don't know the reality in other universities. At one point in time, I was co-teaching with one of the colleagues, and he was saying, you know, why don't we give just one test for the entire semester and just proceed? I think this is a lack of commitment, which is also dwindling in our university. Maybe this is not the case with others. There are people who are just here for the sake of being here, but they don't have serious commitment. The last thing, I think Professor Amos, you talked about the question of autonomy with regard to medical issues. I think this is a serious concern. For example, you people who are dealing with our health, if you cannot autonomously conduct your affairs, research, and so on and so forth, I think this is a serious question which has a lot of ramifications in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the panelists. And mine is just a word of comfort to Julius. When we come to some of these engagements, I think we are supposed to share some practices so that maybe we can comfort each other. Julius, as you are grappling with leaders who can't make decisions, independent decisions, for us, we have cadres. Cadres, and they are identified, groomed to take over positions. Merit is no longer known. It's alien now. You know that this is a heir to this department, to the others, to the other school, to the other college. So and so is being groomed to take over the position of Deputy Vice Chancellor, Finance and Administration. And as you are grappling with acting, for us we have acting, where you have an acting goes for leave or goes somewhere, you appoint another acting. And when the other acting comes, then this acting goes back and the acting takes over. When we are talking about academic freedom, it becomes apparent that institutions cannot act independently with such kind of leadership. Where there are no substantive, I can give you an example. Makerere University has not had a substantive Deputy Vice Chancellor, Finance and Administration for 6 years. And it's because of the politics, because they know that once they open it up, they will not control Senate, and the Senate will give the position to another person. But there is also a direct attack on existing structures like Senate, where some of the fundamental decisions are supposed to be made, but they make sure that when they are going to communicate, some like the chairperson of the Senate will come with a communication, and they have already identified members to support a resolution and second it. So a fundamental item that should be a substantive item on the agenda will come masked under the communication of the chairperson. They will present it. I think we need this kind of a nomination, and from nowhere, our person raises a hand. I propose that we nominate so and so. Another person will raise up a hand. Any objection? The other person is already stage managed. I second. Any contrary opinion? Now the contrary opinion is already stage managed to move that we close the nomination. So it's, we have reached a level of having two words. We have a cartel and a cabal. For those of you who know English, a cartel and a cabal. Management thinks that staff associations are a cabal, and the staff that support the staff associations and the ideology, and then those who support management are also regarded as cabal. So it's a toxic environment. And if you remember my statement, I said that universities have not changed the location, they have changed the direction. And it's not a must that the direction we are taking is the right direction. Therefore, as we talk about all these strategies, but also I want to give you a live example that the apathy of staff is real. Staff have withdrawn. They come, enter the university, enter class, they exit. Call them for a meeting, you'll not see them. Organize a dialogue, you'll not see them. Because they have left the university to the university administrators. Because they believe they have no value they're adding to the university. And this is real. And from your explanation, I can easily see the same trend that since this is the trajectory, we shall come, teach, and go. But for us now, they're introducing their biometric. They're saying, please come back. Stay here from 8 to 5. And the staff are saying, no, our job is well cut out. We teach, we do research, we do community service. Professor talked about being relevant to the communities. We are now building boundary walls so that the communities cannot come to us. You know the relationship between the rich and the poor. When you get some money, you build a boundary wall so that whoever is to come must come through the gate. Now, if you're using that model in academia, we are also building boundary walls around our universities. What does that mean? For communities to come to us, they must follow a certain pattern. I've heard that they have to first report to the dean. The dean, the former dean here was mentioning it. Now, from that point of relevance, are we still relevant? If we are saying for you to come to us, you must come through this line of thinking. But above all that, within a boundary wall, we are building boundary walls. I was telling Professor yesterday, the other day during our flight. You have a boundary wall outside, but within the university at the same time, you have another boundary wall. So what are these boundary walls, and what are they depicting? Are they demonstrating that we are actually being caged day by day, that as academicians we are being caged day by day, and therefore for you to get out, we should know where you are and where you're heading? So I think we need to reflect on where we are and where we want to get. But lastly, this position we are in, we must emancipate ourselves. I want to challenge everyone in this room. We must emancipate ourselves. Where I come from, there is a certain section of people called Baganda. They have a proverb that the hair in this nose, it's you to remove it yourself if it itches you. No one will remove it. And therefore, whatever is itching us as academia, we have solutions that we must invoke. Those who think of apathy and they have given out, they will find them wherever they are. They will be oppressed. They will oppress them from there. They will understand that they have to come back and find the solutions as long as they still want to be in academia. I thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you all presenters and members of the round table. yesterday, one of the presentation, it was pointed out that when you have freedom of speech, then even average readers can perform wonders, can become very good leaders. I wonder why these leaders who are likely coming from among us do not understand this, maybe. Where did we go wrong? People like Professor Shivji. Where did we go wrong? Because people, when they presented, they said we were fighting against colonial oppression, and now we are fighting against our own people oppressing us. So where do we go wrong? Is it that the weapon of individualizing rights is eating us now, or is it something else? You experience people who have done research on this area. What exactly is wrong? Can this, what Professor Mwakgonja presented as trying to like invite others to join the war by providing service or seeking ways to attach to the community so that they can fight with us, is it going to work if you look at it from your experience, like Professor Shivji and other colleagues who have done research on this?
Yeah, sorry. Isa will be last. I just have one point to share. One is a quick one is about the campuses and how the situation is. You are talking about the apathy, and the colleagues from Nairobi University may attest to what I want to say, because a colleague of mine from University of Nairobi said Nairobi campus is a ghost place. There are no students, there are no staff because of online teaching, etc., etc. So you go on campus, you don't see people. It's a ghost university town. So you will attest to that. I don't know. But anyway, but the second thing is that I wanted to read to my colleagues Article 17 of the Kampala Declaration on the responsibility of the state. And one of the responsibility of the state stated under Article 17 is that, I quote, the state shall continuously ensure adequate funding for research institutions and higher education, which one of the points you made, Professor Amos, is about the 1% of GDP to support research. But I'm taking a cue from what, I don't know what's your name again, Julius said, his optimism on the meeting between the president and vice chancellors and the registrar, treasurer. Okay? Because he talks about autonomy, especially the registrar or treasurer registrar. He talks about giving autonomy to public institutions, and I think in it he mentions universities, and I think one of the universities singled out is University of Dar es Salaam. But what are the contents of that autonomy? One, that they will hire their own staff and pay. Okay? They will hire and pay. Now, take the University of Dar es Salaam. If you are saying, okay, you will be autonomous and you will pay your staff. So the state is abdicating from its responsibility of funding universities. So that's autonomy where the state abdicates from its responsibility of funding the university. That is not the kind of autonomy I want to hear when it comes to funding public institutions. So we have to be cautious of what exactly is being recommended. That's the question I wanted to share. Thank you.
just a short comment on a more positive note. Listening to Professor Shija from Dodoma and Professor Amos from Muhimbili, I get the feeling there is already a critical mass here present for advancing the cause that we have been talking about. Professor Shija was saying that somehow we have to come together to collaborate. He was talking much more on the continental level. But I would start for Tanzania. If we have staff associations at our universities, before we leave this place, why don't you decide in principle that we form some sort of an organization of all the staff associations? Say Tanzania Federation of Staff Associations. Now I know. You will say, no, that's not possible. The government will not register it. Think the impossible. Start thinking about it, start acting on it if we talk about impossibility of registration. If you build up pressure from the bottom, it's not impossible. I know. The second thing you will say, how do we meet together? Who will organize it? Professor Shija. Take the initiative, you know. Okay? Where will the funds come from? We try to get funds from Codesria. What funds do we need? Just to travel to Udo? Stay there for a few days? Let's start discussing. Let's discuss. Let's make a decision in principle to go forward. We cannot just continue lamenting. And I totally agree that if the staff associations were to come together, their voice will be stronger. I'm telling you, however authoritarian the government is, no government would like to be delegitimized. And our function is to delegitimize it in the eyes of the people. And that you can do only if what Professor Amos was saying. The people will listen to you if they think you are relevant to them. Okay? By being relevant to them, you're not empowering them, you're not educating them, you are giving yourself a voice. Let's be clear. Okay? Then the community will come in your defense. And then the community will come in your defense. And your experience as it used to Dar es Salaam, the legal aid that you're talking about, give credibility to the University of Dar es Salaam. Give credibility to the University of Dar es Salaam. Okay? The kind of debate that took place on multi-party, the Yelali Commission, gave credibility. Right? Yelali Commission went around the whole country getting opinion on one party or multi-party. Then at last they came to the university. That was broadcast live. People recorded it and started playing in bars. Why? Because the people thought that what the university was saying, they had no ulterior motive. They had no ulterior motive. And these recordings started playing in the bars of what the university was saying, to the extent that the security had to go around and collect all the tapes. So don't undermine coming together. Don't undermine coming together. This is part of the struggle. Organize to struggle. Struggle to organize. That should be our motto. So let's start at the Tanzanian level. And I see we have a critical mass. Frankly, we have a critical mass. So I'm becoming, hour by hour, as I'm listening to, I'm becoming very hopeful. We're not lost everything. Okay? We're not lost. Let's reclaim the tradition. Let's do it. Don't say, how do I do it? No, do it. Do it. Okay? Thank you.
We talked about autonomy. You brought some information, some examples. The participants also did the same. So please, you have perhaps 5 minutes each What do we mean by autonomy? What are we about to do to regain this autonomy? That we understand it doesn't mean we are against the state. Because normally when we take position, the state says that we are anti-patriots. So, please, I don't want to talk too much because I could say a lot of things. But okay, please. We can begin by you, please. Amos? Professor Amos, sorry.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for all the contributions, and most of them were comments, and they are well taken. I would concur with the chair that academic freedom and institutional freedom does not necessarily mean to oppose the state. We should also accept that the state is one of the main players in any country. And then we should also, if we are educated and intellectuals, we should also learn how to live with the state and also utilize the state to our advantage as an academic mass. How can we harness privileges and the opportunities from the state? I don't mean positions or appointments, but collectively resources, because the state controls resources. And whatever you want to do needs resources. So that is, we need to know how to, better ways how to harness. And I was thinking, since the GDP, we are part of the GDP, we produce the GDP. And all countries agreed that 1% of the GDP should go to research. If we are able to get that money, universities are going to be autonomous. It's a lot of money. 1% of the Tanzanian GDP, if we get it, it's a lot of money. But we are not getting, whatever we are doing now is less than 1%, very much less than that 1%. But also, in our research and innovations and intellectualism, what innovations and interventions are we discovering and introduce which are relevant to the state as well, as a player in the community? You know, and then it will naturally also be in support of university autonomy as if it benefits. You remember our former president, he supported there was one man who discovered electricity somewhere, and ideally in Tanzania all electrical issues are controlled by TANESCO. But he supported that old man in the village who discovered electricity, hydroelectric power or something like that. So when you become relevant to the state, that will. But I think we have not taken research funding, consultants, and universities as industries of production. We have not taken this to the limits. We are training academicians who don't know how to produce. I think even if you are doing BA in political science, there are products you can come up with. You can come up with the products, you can come up with apps, you can come up with solutions which can, in the end of the day, make us autonomous and less dependent on not just the state, but the donors, the people who give us funds. And also, I think at the end of the day, we are workers. Okay, whether we call ourselves civil servants or public servants, whatever, but we are workers. And then we are worried about how are we going to live after retirement? And that's another area where we find people interact with the state to try to get a better package. And then if I cannot get a better package from the university, why should I not run for a position, maybe member of parliament or whatever? But also, do we recognize our own stuff? I will give you an example. I will mention a name. There was one very prominent professor from Muhimbili who died. That professor is the father of Muhimbili University Moas, is the father of Muhimbili National Hospital, is the father of Muhimbili Orthopedic Institute, is the father of Ocean Road Cancer. All these institutions, they started under his leadership. Those are just one of the few things he did. The week he died, only we people at Muhimbili knew about his death. I did not see it anywhere announced, anywhere in any social media, whatever, internet news, media outlets. But there was also a Diwan, or a political figure, or this celebrity, either, I don't know him. It was one of these celebrities who died the same week, and everybody was talking about that celebrity. But the contribution to the country made by that professor is so huge. If you go to Moi today and be treated, that professor is the one who created Moi. You go to Ocean Road to be treated, that professor. And nobody even knew that he passed away. So if we don't recognize our own people, even at the point of death, kwa sababu wa Afrika hatumtambui mtu akiwa hai, tunamtambua akifa. Sasa hata akifa hatumtambui. So so people, where should they go to? So we need to change, and as some people say, we are our own enemies. Cultivate a culture. That's why I said we need to introduce recognition. We have a lot of people with merits. There are a lot of things we have done and nobody knows. For example, me myself, I'm the first person to introduce the ECG in the Rukwa region. Who knows? Before me, nobody has ever used the ECG, electrocardiography, in the Rukwa region. I'm the first person to introduce electrocardiography in the Rukwa region. Who knows in this country? Nobody knows. And there are a lot of other things that I introduced. I introduced the combination therapy to treat what we call puerperosepsis, infections during delivery and after delivery. Mothers were dying from severe infections. They are only being treated by 1 or 2 drugs. I said, no, you cannot treat them with you need to add a third drug. And there was no third drug at all regional hospitals in the Rukwa region by that time. So I took the matron of the regional hospital. We went to a Catholic health center. And I asked the nun, I said, do you have, it was intravenous metronidazole. At the Sumbawanga Regional Government Hospital, where I was acting medical officer in charge, they had never seen an intravenous metronidazole injection at a regional government hospital. So I took the matron to the Catholic health center and asked the nun, do you have IV metronidazole? She said, yes, we have. I said, can you give us? So she gave us as donations, and we took them to treat their mothers at our hospital, and then we started rescuing lives. But who knows? So we need also to have means to recognize our people and their merits, not only by name but also by substance, and that will promote autonomy. You cannot be autonomous if you are poor. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for comment, Professor from MUHAS, and other members who have some comments. Mine, not much. I know I have now a burden. Professor Shivdi put something on my head, so I want to be much talkative now because I have something to chew. And in Africa, we don't speak while eating, so I will try to be a bit brief. So people are talking about freedom, DVCs, going to government to ask for freedom, but I will ask them freedom from who? From who appointed them, or from where? It doesn't hold the water in somehow, because actually it's like I give you power and then you start asking, okay, allow me to do my things. But I gave you power. You are my appointee, so you have to dance my tune. So there is a contradiction there. So we still have to work hard. But a submission I can have from the discussions of other people from other countries tells me that Africa is one. Africa is one. It's better we remove even those boundaries from now, because it's like he was at the University of Dodoma. And I hear the same stories from University of Muhimbili and the others. So African is one. So if we have one Africa, one problem, then we should have one solution. And that is coming from us. So thanks very much for the experience from Uganda and other universities. So let us join our forces. Professor Shija, can I assure you I'm capable of doing that task. We'll start organizing and trying to bring together Tanzanian universities, Kenya universities, and the others to voice ourselves. We have a very precious commodity, education. We need the right of doing research we want to do, publish the data, not being censored, that this data, you can't publish this. Imagine at the middle of COVID-19 in Tanzania, you publish that now we have 10 cases, while the government is declaring that there's no cases in Tanzania. It was a trouble. So we need to have that freedom, we want to have that autonomy to decide. But we want also to have the right to choose our leaders based on merits. A vice chancellor should not come from nowhere just because he knows the appointing authority. Should be somebody who deserves. And we decide that this person is deserved. And if somebody is leading us to do research, he must demonstrate, or she must demonstrate that she can do research. She has published in good, reputable journals, Nature or something. You can't argue about it. It is not necessary this person to be maybe known to the appointing authority, but go to African university. We have the experience from Uganda. Professor Joe was telling us in the morning. The cousin, the friend, the cadres. We don't want those ones. Those ones cannot lead us to development of our universities. We need people who can think beyond what we can see now. If we have those people, let them, even if we can't have them, we can even bring them. Why are we bringing engineers and technologies in Africa, but we can't bring people in science and technology to revive ourselves and going forward? So, and that this one should not sound like I don't want the government to be part and parcel of our struggle to improve our academics and our research and our consultants' ways. But I will say that always listen to your children. Listen to our children. The universities are the government's children. And then give us what we want, and they give us our own autonomous to do what we want to do. That's what we are asking for. We don't want to tell us, don't teach this. But we know the need. We are doing the need assessment to develop curriculum. So why are you telling us again that you cannot teach this? We know much better. Because at the end of the day, policies, we are the one who can make good policies out of data from research and other experiences in the community. To be relevant is very important. But are we given that opportunity to be relevant? That is another question also to ask ourselves. Because when you try to do this, you say, the one will come, the nut will come, the minister will come, the other will come, then interference. You are tired, you go back home. That's why you find now lecturers as doing small business retailing things. They are selling soap, a PhD selling soaps, doing all this kind of ground-nuts business, which actually is misuse of resources we have. So autonomous and freedom will give us strength to fully utilize our resources invested in academics. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your interventions. And after the observations of my colleagues, it's hard to add really a lot. But I can say that really it's important to have the freedom, the autonomy for our institutions. We all, I think, agree on this. But still, I believe that we need also the regulations from external authority, from the government. It's necessary to keep the quality of what we are teaching. So this balance is really, we need to work on this. And to do so, I think that our institution need to say that they have that freedom, the autonomy. They need really to work on different segments, as I said, on academic, on the financial, and mostly on the administrative, not always to allow the government to have that interference on what they are doing. And also I think that it's very important to always to have in our mind that higher learning institutions, we are mostly here to respond to the needs of our students and the communities, not necessarily to those of the governments. So it may be not easy to get that balance, but it's very important really to work on this. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the three panelists, and thank you for your contributions. I think that we already have the lunch, or not? Kamata, Professor Kamata. Shall we proceed to the room? Yes. Now? Okay, thank you very much. Bye-bye. Thank you. Sorry? 3 o'clock. Okay. Please.
Okay, as we agreed that we are going to, for lunch now, and then we'll come back at 3 o'clock sharp for the final session of the day.